I'm Lloyd Music, and welcome to this package that I've entitled Harmony, the Science of Music. In this package you will receive 24 lessons covering the basics of harmony, and I'm confident that once you've completed this course of training, you'll have enough knowledge to be able to confidently move forward in your musical journey, whether that be towards teaching, conducting, composition or arranging. The knowledge you will gain will also fulfill the harmony requirement up to modulation to closely related keys of virtually any of the major theory of music examinations held the world over. It is assumed that you already have a thorough knowledge of the foundations or rudiments of music. Can I say here that your knowledge of the foundations of music must be sound, otherwise this package will be a struggle for you. Any gaps you have in your foundations of music knowledge will be shown up in bright lights as you move through these lessons. Each of these lessons builds on the knowledge presented in any previous lesson. Your thorough understanding of music rudiments is a crucial prerequisite in the learning process. Any gaps you have in your music basics will simply grow bigger and bigger until you fall into a huge hole. You will proceed no further until you plug any gaps. For me, the study of harmony has been the most fascinating of musical journeys, and it's my hope that over the next 24 lessons, you will also develop a real passion, as I have, for this most fascinating subject. Harmony is the hub of the musical wheel. Understanding harmony will assist you greatly if you wish to become a conductor, arranger, composer, or music teacher. And if you diligently complete the lessons, the improvement in your oral skills will amaze you. Over the years, many students have asked me, what is the point of studying harmony? After all, it's based around music of the 16 and 1700s. My answer to them is quite simple. Firstly, there hasn't been a pop tune or jazz standard written in the last 100 years that uses anharmonic or melodic language beyond the mid-1700s. So the study of harmony from that perspective alone is as beneficial today as it's always been. Secondly, the proper study of harmony, and when I say the proper study of harmony, with harmony you can't just read a harmony book from cover to cover or even complete these lessons and then somehow miraculously be able to compose or arrange music, or even be able to study a simple score in preparation for a concert. Harmony is a subject you have to develop through continued study, practice and experimentation. The big bonus when studying harmony is that it helps to develop your oral acuity. Oral acuity is, in essence, developing the brain, and for us as musicians, developing our oral acuity must always be our highest priority. I'd like to give you an analogy using our eyesight or visual acuity. If I were to write a Chinese symbol on a board and, assuming you weren't Chinese or could read and understand Chinese, then ask you what that symbol meant, most people wouldn't know. Clearly, it would be silly of me to then accuse you of being blind. After all, there's nothing wrong with your eyesight. The eyes can see the Chinese symbol. It's the brain that hasn't been trained to recognize that particular symbol and its meaning. And so it is with oral acuity. Unless you're actually deaf, it would be incorrect to state that you're tone deaf. After all your ears are doing are collecting the sounds that are presented to you. It's in the brain that all the hard work is done analysing the particular sounds to come up with an outcome that makes sense. Individual voices is soprano, from middle C to G sitting on top of the stave. Alto is the same name notes but the other way round, from G below middle C to C an octave above middle C. Tenor is the same as the soprano but down an octave, that is C below middle C to the G above middle C. When voicing a chord for four voices, voicing means to spread the notes of the chord throughout the four voices, you must always, in major and minor chords, have the tonic and the third present in the sound. Now a minor chord without its third, followed by a minor chord with its third. And again. I hope you can hear how compulsory the third is to the major and minor chord sound, and that with the third included, the chords sound orally complete and correct. So what actually constitutes a good melody? One great way of finding out is to analyse a number of melodies and see what we can deduct. I only analyse a verse and a chorus of a particular song, and I tally up the number of unisons, seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, sevenths, and octaves that occur, both moving up and down. I then look for any other outcomes the results present. The songs I use for this lesson include the Australian, American and British national anthems, the Christmas carols While Shepherds Watch Their Flocks by Night and The First Noel, the hymn tune Finlandia, the Beatles' Hey Jude and Eleanor Rigby, the children's song This Old Man, Waltzing Matilda, Oh Susanna, Autumn Leaves, Moon River, Desafinado, Here Comes That Rainy Day Feeling, and Killing Me Softly with his song. Here are the results. All up, there were 879 melodic steps. 57% of these were steps up or down a second. 15% were steps up or down a third. 15% were repeated same pitch notes. 7% were leaps of a fourth. 2% were leaps of a fifth. 1% were leaps of a sixth. 0.5% were leaps of a seventh. 0.5% were leaps of an octave. 70% of the leaps of a fourth or higher saw the very next note returning within the leap. 0.1% were leaps of a diminished fourth. Another 0.1% were leaps of a diminished fifth. Take particular note that, of all 879 melodic steps, there were no augmented intervals. Consecutive octaves are where any two of the four voices move consecutively from one chord to another and in the same direction at the interval of a perfect octave. If you do this, what you're in fact doing is undermining the strength or integrity of the harmonic progression between those two voices at that particular time. For example, if we have the soprano and the alto moving in perfect octaves, have a listen. You will hear within that it's difficult to tell whether there are two voices, whereas if they moved, say, in thirds, you can actually hear two separate voices. Whilst it's a bit easier to hear that there are two voices in there, the bareness of the sound of the two voices moving in consecutive perfect fifths is what the issue is. There's a flaw in the harmonic integrity of the two particular parts at that time. If we moved in thirds and added the occasional fifth, we'll have this sort of sound. Is diminished. Now remember, you can only have consecutive fifths and octaves if the two voices concerned are actually changing pitch and moving in the same direction. For example, if you have two repeated notes in consecutive perfect fifths or perfect octaves, those two fifths or two octaves repeated are not consecutive fifths or octaves. Therefore, they don't constitute an error. Primary or secondary chords that are a step or a second apart. Let's see what the problem is. The F chord on your screen at the moment is chord 1 in the key of F. If we wish to move from chord 1 to chord 2, the bass will have to move from the note F up to the note G. And because we're only using root position chords, the bass has no alternative but to move from the note F up to the note G. For those who are a little bit inexperienced at harmony, one of the biggest traps is to have all the other parts moving by step in the same direction. The problem that we have by having all the parts moving in the same direction by step is that we've now created not only a set of consecutive octaves, but a set of consecutive fifths as well. And this will always happen if all the parts move in the same direction by step between primary and secondary chords in root position that are a second apart. It must be pointed out that there are hundreds of possible cadences in Western music. To study all of them would take way too much time, so we'll look at just the 4 basic cadences initially. They are the perfect cadence, the plagal cadence, the imperfect cadence, and the interrupted cadence. So, what's a cadence? A cadence in music is very similar to a cadence in speech. As we speak, we often naturally pause at certain points to emphasize something or to take a breath, or by the pitch of our voice, let the listener know that we haven't quite finished what we're saying. I'm now going to play for you 2 short works. Both works contain all the cadences we've studied so far. You will recall my statement from earlier in this lesson that the 4 cadences we've covered are just 4 of many. Well, I've thrown in a cadence in both works that is not one of the 4 we've studied, just for interest. You'll notice, however, that this rogue cadence follows the rhythm for a cadence, which is why it will sound quite natural to you. On the screen, I'll just refer to this particular cadence by the word cadence and the root indication 1 to 4. The first work will be in the minor key. On the screen, I'll let you know when the cadences occur and which cadence they are. The second work is similar to the first, but it's in the tonic major key. So you will hear the exact same cadences, but listen to how different they sound in the major key as opposed to the minor key.